Well, let's call the meeting to order. Beth, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Here.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Here.
Mr. Gousset?
Here.
Mrs. Matney?
Here.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Here. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, first on the agenda is the minutes from both our last regular meeting and organizational meeting and our special meeting from February 5th, which was just a really short approval. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any questions, comments? Hearing none, Beth, can you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassmuth?
I did not attend the special meeting on the 5th. Do I abstain?
Just approving the minutes.
I thought we abstained if we didn't attend.
You can if you'd like to.
I'll abstain.
Okay, first, we have the recognition of guests and hearing of the public. Is there anyone here to speak?
Good evening. My name is Keelan Swisher.
And my name is Sophia Zaba Ramsey, and we are student leaders of the Bobcat Anti-Racism Collective. We are grateful to be in a school that offers clubs like BARC, and we want to share our gratitude for the school's continued support of honesty in education.
BARC is a student group of leaders that actively tries to combat racism and raise awareness of past or ongoing issues concerning race. We have hosted movie nights and general meetings, have provided resources to combat bills in our legislature, and more. Thank you again for your continued support and for ensuring that we have a safe and inclusive environment for learning. Specifically, we recently held a general session focusing on the impact of language and microaggressions in Grandview using anonymous testimonies from students and staff. This session used these testimonies as a way to see the harm of language here in Grandview and as a way to practice what to say in the face of microaggressions. It was very impactful for all students involved to see that even in a school like Grandview, there is still a lot of harmful language being used. Hopefully after this session, students will feel more comfortable speaking out when they hear statements like these.
Another issue that BARC is working to combat are House bills that are being proposed across the country, including in Ohio, to curtail honesty in education and the vital discussions of divisive concepts. This recently has been coupled with the dangerous epidemic of book banning. As BARC members, along with many other students, we believe it is valuable to learn about the past to acknowledge our previous mistakes and prevent them from repeating. Ignoring issues such as racism does not make it go away.
Given the current climate of dishonesty, ignorance, and ambiguity in the United States, we are especially glad that our school does its best to promote a holistic curriculum characterized by diverse representation and valuable discussions that help us grow as critical thinkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else to speak? I don't believe so. Okay, we have one presentation, the Pathways team.
Give us 1 second here.
While you're setting up, Mr. Brown, do you want to give us an update on your wife and when she's due?
It's official business.
I don't think he does.
Okay. I've got about one more month of sleep, and she's March 15th. So we're ready.
Wow.
Yay.
Truly, it could be like
We're
a
ready.
week from now,
I think
really.
we're ready. You're never ready.
Phone's on. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Dice, it's, the media center is not showing up as a choice for me. Oh, wait, it just did. Never mind, I just had to say your name. Magic. Okay. Good evening. Tonight, we're going to talk about college, career, workforce, and military, and what does it look like, and what does it mean to Grandview Heights School students? If you think back to your graduation, and maybe I'll just use mine, I had one requirement, and that was course requirement. I just had to finish the courses that I was required to take in graduation. So that still existed for our high school graduates. They have to have 21 credits in order to graduate. But they also have to demonstrate competency. So that means there are 2 end-of-course exams that they must pass to graduate, and that is ELA 2 and Algebra 1. There are other tests they have to take, but they do not have to pass them to graduate. those two they do. So that's the competency base. The state is introducing new ways to hit competency, but we could talk about that later. The third way is to demonstrate readiness, and that's new. So I talked about the diploma, you need 21 credits. Well, now there are many academic diplomas. So you can have an academic honors diploma, you can have a career tech honors diploma, a STEM honors diploma, an arts honors diploma, or a social science and civics engagement honors diploma. So we used to just have a diploma and an honors diploma. Now we have more. Then there are new things that I just talked about as readiness. Our students have to have 2 of these seals. If you look at the picture, they kind of remind me of like Boy Scout or Girl Scout badges. And so you have to have 2 seals in order to graduate. So you have to have 21 credits, you have to pass 2 tests, and you have to have 2 seals. And then there's a plethora of honors diplomas.
Are the honors diplomas, are the seals separate from the honors diploma? Like, are the honors diploma one of the seals, or no?
No.
No, okay.
Hi, everyone. As you're all aware, the vast majority of our students are college-bound. Not every student, but the vast majority are. And so I know this graph is kind of hard to see, but the way that we report to the state how many of our kids go to 4-year and 2-year college vocational schools is through a survey that the state creates. And so if you can see this graph, the first thing you're going to realize that it's very inaccurate. And so what this is saying is that 50% of our kids enrolled in post-secondary education. Obviously, way more than 50%. However, we have to go off of what we report to the state is from that survey that the state creates, which is very long and cumbersome. So the challenge is that many students, last year was the first time that we gave the survey, and the survey would have been for the class of 2022. So last year was the first time that we gave it, so we learned a lot from it. One of the challenges in talking to a lot of the students is they were either unwilling or unable to complete the survey. Most of them just didn't want to. Some of them said, I don't want the state tracking me. So we had that barrier. And the state requires certain questions that students just didn't want to answer. For example, there are quite a few questions about their employment. So if you're employed, are you being paid the same as students or adults with disabilities? And so they're like, I don't know, I'm not answering that question, and then it kicks the whole survey out. So we learned a lot last year. This year, to combat that, because it is important to have accurate data, because that is how we're going to track our graduates. So this year, we're using SchoolLinks as a platform. Last year, because it'll be last year's graduates that we're surveying this year, we did a lot of work speaking to the seniors that, hey, this survey is important, it's coming, what can we do to better sort of help you through that? The students are used to SchoolLinks at this point, or they're getting used to it. They'll be texted, we're going to text students through Parent Square. It's sort of a simpler survey that we've been working on that isn't so cumbersome. If you look at the state one, it's very wordy, it's very confusing. I wasn't sure how to answer some of those questions. The better messaging on how and why we need the data. Some incentives, some gift cards they could win, just random drawing. Phone calls to families of students who have not completed the survey. Last year we tried calling students and some families, but it was a challenge. We're also more aware, so the deadline to submit is May. So our EMIS coordinator, Jamie, has to submit the data from the surveys to the state in May. And so some students filled it out after May, and it didn't count. And so we are more informed this year, and we've been working with our students because that data is important.
So, I'm sorry, this May, it'll be reporting on the students who graduate in '23.
23, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said something about a simpler text survey, but you mentioned the original survey was dictated by the state, so they're okay with a different type of survey?
Yeah, it's still, it's still the same questions. We just cleaned up the language. We shortened some of the questions, but it's still asking the same things. So we weren't allowed to eliminate the questions. We just cleaned up the language in the questions.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to go through their central portal or something. You're
Right.
allowed to collect
We
it
get the
and-
data, and then the EMIS coordinator will report it based on the original questions, but they match evenly. It's just more student-friendly.
Okay.
SchoolLinks, we'll talk more about SchoolLinks here in a little bit, but One of the really cool features, I'm just going over one of the many features that it does, is it allows for college exploration. So students can go in and say, hey, I want to attend a big school, a small school. I want to go to a school that, that'll accept dual enrollment or advanced placement, the AP credits, or I want to, the student teacher faculty is important. I want a low student teacher faculty. I want a certain climate. I mean, you can put in any kind of, now obviously the program that they're going to study is probably the most important thing. So, the programs being offered is also a part of the survey. But there's also a lot of other things that factor into, we believe, and the survey will help to confirm this, but students stay at school for certain reasons, and I don't think it's because of the major. So I think some kids pick schools because, well, for any number of reasons. A lot of our kids actually pick schools because it's where they can play sports, or it's big or it's small, or the climate. But this will just help them make a more informed decision. So it's a really cool feature if you can play with it.
So we're going to show you in every step of this a School Links connection, because we've talked about School Links before, and we thought it was important for you guys to see kind of what kids can do in it. So career and workforce. So I showed you the SEALs. There are 12 of them. We do not expect any of our students to earn all 12. We do have some go-getter kids that are going to try to do that, but it's not possible, so we're going to have to keep training them that you can't earn all 12. It's not Boy Scouts. You got to get the ones that make sense to you in your pathway. Right now, it is very easy for our kids to earn 2 SEALs. They earn them with their eyes closed. And it's pretty easy for them to get a 3rd. Sometimes the 4th gets a little trickier because they really have to hone in on what they want to do. But the industry credential seal and the Ohio Means Job seal, we don't currently, this year, we don't have a means to offer that on campus. So we are working as a district. I have a pathways committee that's working on all of this work this year as part of our strategic plan. And we are working on creating an industry credential pathway, and we're trying to figure out how to monitor Ohio Means Jobs. So I think we can do that. But the bigger goal of our committee is to no longer think about college or career. I want to get rid of that word or. I'd like to bury it in the ground, and we're going to say and. We're going to say career and college. So as we looked at industry credentials, the one thing you need to understand about that is it has to be a third party that offers the curriculum that has a test. The child has to have a tested certificate in order to get an industry credential. So, for instance, CPR, it's an industry credential. So we do CPR, but guess what? We don't make the kids take the test. We're going to, and then they will have their first industry credential. Also, you might think this is strange, but a driver's license is an industry credential. Why? Because industry is saying kids aren't getting their driver's license anymore. So that is an industry credential. If kids get their driver's license, we can use that. But we're also looking at other opportunities, and we think we can, maybe not next year completely, but within next year and the year after, we can possibly offer 2 12-point credentials in the engineering pathway and the informational technology pathway on campus. Kids won't have to go anywhere, on campus. That 12-point industry credential, if you decide I'm graduating high school and I'm done, you now have skills that you could walk in and get a pretty decent job if you have the informational technology certificates, because they're through CertPoint. You're learning JavaScript, you're learning communication, you've learned Adobe, those types of things, and those make you marketable. If you want to go to college for informational tech and you have that on your resume to go to college, as colleges start to level set GPAs, because that's kind of the first thing they do, is they kind of strip down the GPA and then they look at depth of course. This also now, if you have a 12-point credential, gives you a bump there, because look, you've taken some classes that are in your field already, something you're interested in. So it is that career and workforce. So what does career exploration look like in School Links? This is fascinating. If I sat down with my niece and my sister, because my niece has not showed her any of this. So you can click the state that you want to live in, and it will give you the most, or give you the jobs with the most openings, with a bachelor's degree, associates, or a non-degree. So you can see in each state. Then, once you pick the state, you can type in the career you think you want, And it'll show you, the different careers in Ohio that have openings. And then the next thing it takes you to is a video. So you're with the day in a life of a person who's doing that career. And it tells you, you know, your salary and the type of degree you need. So these are great conversations for parents and kids, because let's face it, kids only know what their parents are or their grandparents or neighbors. So this gives them an idea for other careers. Also, they can type in opportunities right now. So if they can type in career opportunities and you want to be a lifeguard, well, right there, Dublin is marketing for lifeguards, and you can apply right through School Links. Goldfish Swim School down there, they're marketing for swim instructors. So it's like a job board. It's like a LinkedIn for kids.
All right, I will primarily talk about the military opportunities and venues through School Links, but last month I kind of spoke about the scheduling aspect of School Links and how students can kind of use that with the course handbook, access their schedule, and kind of take ownership of how that timeline is going to work with courses. What we're doing tonight is kind of talking about that other end of School Links where you have all the college information, the career. This video that I'm going to show you, I'm going to kind of walk you through, is through the military lens. But you can kind of envision this with anything a student would see as they're in School Links looking at this side of things. So let me go ahead and put this up. So it only stays blurry for a few seconds, I promise. So right now I'm demoing as a student. Hey, let me get it unblurry. So right now I am demoing as a student. So right now this is kind of their main page when they're on the exploration side of things. And the section I'm going to check out with you today is the Career Center. So if a student is interested in any kind of career, and again, I'm going through the lens of military tonight, but if a student is interested in any kind of career, they can go over to this Career tab. There's different ones they can choose, but they go to Career Center, and this is that page that Angie was just talking about. This is their main page, and since we live in Ohio, it's going to bring up that state. But again, it's going to show all those different job opportunities, the openings, and you can click on any of those if you want. But if I'm looking for something in regards to the military, going beyond just having the recruiters in our building, which is great, talking to the kids at their leisure, during study halls, during lunches and things like that, if kids want to learn the different kinds of careers besides just going into those branches, this is a really powerful tool. So what I'll do is I'll just simply type in the word military, and you're going to see kind of a plethora of things that pop up here. I forget which one I selected here, so bear with me. Oh yeah, law enforcement officers. I just chose this one. It has a military tag on it, and this is kind of any career that you're searching within School Links is the next kind of 2 minutes that we're going to walk through. Again, through the military lens, we're looking at law enforcement here. And the first tab we're going to look at is this general overview. And you're going to see the type of military branches that it's connected to, some of the different skill importance, the job overview. And I really love this what do they do portion. I know with job titles like law enforcement and things like that, it's kind of, people think it might be self-explanatory. But when you're reading this as a student, even as a 43-year-old man, you're kind of seeing some different angles of things that these positions offer, and kids can either say, this is a career that I really, really want to go into. These are some things that I might need to pick it up a little bit, or this might steer them into a different path. So it kind of gives them that ownership again of looking over some things. Under that general overview tab is the education and training. And it's going to kind of highlight some of the different education opportunities that you'd either need to go into to get into the military to be part of this, to be get into this career, but also the helpful attributes and the important qualities that go along with this. Again, I think this is really powerful for students to look at this, kind of investigate some of these different qualities that go into these positions, and kind of gives them ownership of the search. This next one is ask a question. At any time, you can go in here, and if you're looking through the search of law enforcement officers or any branch, and I just typed in here, what branch of the military should I first go into to pursue this? And you go ahead and you click submit. And the reason I like this is because we can always rely on our counselors, we can rely on our teachers, we can rely on our staff. But again, this is a student in study hall, just searching things, kind of taking the ownership again and kind of searching these. And you won't get an instant answer, but you're going to get an answer from a human being. So you get this little queue down here. An email is then sent to our students, which gives a live link back to their school links account, so they can then start that conversation up again. And any other questions that are asked in regards to this career, what do most people work in law enforcement, or what do most people work if they are in law enforcement? It just gives the answer to kind of give them that information as well. My favorite tab in here is the career opportunities. Again, lining up with the military focus here, it really breaks down the different branches and talks about those law enforcement positions within each branch. And it kind of like highlights if a student has a certain type of branch of military in mind, they can kind of pursue those. But what's really, really nice is this section just below this, in these similar careers, these are all tied to different military careers. And again, this is the military focus. If I was searching something for nursing, it would all have a tie to that as well. So we can all go on YouTube rabbit holes and Google rabbit holes. This is a more focused rabbit hole that we can go on that is only going to take you to certain sections that you went there for. And so I just kind of took a look. I hit on cybersecurity, again with a military focus, and it brings you back to that main page. Not too many options, not overwhelming, not confusing, with the same 4 options right here for kids to look at. So I think that's a really powerful tool. All right. I messed somebody up here. Angie, I think. I think. There we go.
Stuck in a loop.
Stuck it on loop. Let's just do it this way.
Okay, so our next steps. I mentioned in the very beginning, we have a pathways investigation team that's part of our strategic plan, and we've been looking at policy. So we do have policies that restrict kids in and off of campus, and we've got to look at those and how can we open it up so if a child does want to do an internship or they want to do an apprenticeship, they can leave. We're looking at resource reviews for industry credentials to be offered here. We're looking for suggestions for K-12 career education, and we are also looking for suggested internships. Something I have done this year so far is I've developed a relationship with the Columbus Career Center leadership team. They have new leadership, and so it's been really nice. I've been getting to know them. They've been getting to know me. They're super helpful. And then working with a company called Bridge Ed, we're looking at our first summer internship possibility for students in tech support. And then the biggest goal for me is that we create this culture of college and career. Any questions?
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. In line with the internships, a lot of bigger districts have mentorship programs where students can leave and go basically, either job shadow or actually do a job for a couple of hours during the day. And I'm not suggesting that we do that because we don't have that big of a clientele, but is there an independent study option where a student could possibly gain credits depending on the internship that they do?
So we are going to work with the ESC because something that bigger districts have are career ed teachers licensed.
Yes.
We have one in the district who already teaches 6 sections of other things. So we are working with the ESC there now. What they're doing is they're vetting companies and then creating opportunities because there's a lot of paperwork and red tape to go through to offer internships for kids. So we're going to work with them to see what we can do. We're trying with this company called Bridge Ed to do our first, it's called High School Tech. We're trying to find outside partners, but if we can't, we might even just create one in school. We're looking for those, but we have to have a partner because we're so small, we don't have a career tech person to support those.
Makes sense, yeah.
Is there an FTE need for that? Are we there?
We're not there yet, and I would say the reason, for another career tech person, the reason I would say I don't think we're there yet is you may be talking 1 or 2 students a full-time person for 1 or 2 students doesn't make a lot of financial sense. So we're looking at ways we can be creative to find avenues for kids. I think too, sometimes what gets in the way is, our students, they like it here. We have really great teachers, and they have really strong connections with our students. We talked to the high school staff this week about some of these things, and I don't know about you, but my high school kids thought I was stupid, but their teachers were smart. So they asked their teachers questions sometimes before me. And so we're just trying to build that culture of, it's okay to leave, we're right here if you need us. Go try something somewhere and come back. So, we'll see. Trying to be creative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing Valentine's Day with us.
Yeah. Nowhere better to be. All right. Any question on building and department reports? Otherwise, moving on to yours.
So wanted to highlight a couple things. First, I wanted to congratulate our Grandview Heights High School Model UN Club that competed in the University of Chicago's International Conference last week. Special congratulations to Sabrina Lee and Ronan Hayes for receiving the second highest award in their committees out of 2,500 students. I wanted to mention next, The Sound of Music, which is, I'll just own it, one of my all-time favorite movies ever.
It's pretty good.
And so I'm actually really excited for this year's musical, March 7th to March 9th. Also, I think, wanted to take a special moment and mention our retirees that are on this evening's board agenda. We will have a opportunity to recognize them. I think we usually do it in June. May, Thank you, Haley. Bobby Penn, Tom Gilbert, and then Carrie O'Mara and Lisa Zag. Importantly, we are likely, pending tonight's board vote, going to engage in a track replacement just north of Grandview Heights High School. And that work will begin March 1st and go all the way to August 1st. And during that time, that complex will be closed. It will be closed to student athletes as well as the community. And I know that space gets a lot of use, so I wanted to mention that publicly at tonight's board meeting. Some of you may have seen online via social media that we have kicked off a neighborhood bridges that will be in collaboration with Grandview Heights Fire, Police, and schools to help support students, families in a myriad of ways. I know you're all super excited. Tomorrow at 8:30 a.m., just outside my office, will be the superintendent's coffee and conversation. It's always a huge attraction in Grandview Heights schools. And then wanted to mention that we had our first facility planning committee meeting about Stevenson Elementary. We have our next meeting February 28th, and the plan and current timeline, and I'm optimistic we'll meet our timeline, is for representatives from that committee to make a presentation at our regularly scheduled March Board of Education meeting around a recommendation for scope to include Stevenson Elementary's master plan and potential components or facets of our K-12 athletic plan. And that's it.
Thank you, Andy. I'll make a special plug for Sound of Music. You can see the Gephardt children in that. Particularly Friday night and Saturday afternoon when Annie Gephardt will be Brigitte Von Trapp. So
So
kids'
exciting.
roles are double cast. So the Von Trapp children, they have two, one set doing 2 shows and another set doing 2 shows. But anyway, it's going to be great, I'm sure. Okay, next on to Beth's presentation.
Okay, I have just a brief review of our financial position as of the end of January. We are in the middle of our first half 24 tax collection process, and we have received advances on that final settlement. Our taxes as of the end of January were about 8.6 million, and about 1.5 million of that are advances. The final settlement is scheduled for I think the 29th of March. So we'll have one more kind of interim update at the end of February, and then final settlement in March. So our state funding is where we expect it to be. The Grandview Yard, the state share of the local property taxes, both will come with the second half property tax settlement. And then interest, $54,108.71 for January, and almost $410,000 for the fiscal year to date. So really continuing to take advantage of the interest rates where they are now, investing our idle funds. Our expense budget, we are 58.3% of the way through the year, and our expenses are 57.8. So we're just a hair under that, and that's where we expect. And then investments, what you'll notice here is that the average yield on the U.S. bank account is going up a few basis points, and the yield on the Star Ohio has dropped a few basis points. So as we look to the future, those numbers are probably going to get a little bit closer. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. Our permanent improvement fund, as of the end of January, our unencumbered fund balance was $230,676.86. And on the agenda tonight is a recommendation to transfer the balance of our construction fund from this 412 project into that permanent improvement fund. And that is almost $300,000. So that represents the amount that we had left over, how much we were under budget at the conclusion of that project. There's a couple kind of caveats that I'm going to mention on the next slide. And then upcoming projects, the big one is that track replacement, and that balance in the construction fund that we're moving in there is really pretty critical to meet the increased cost of that project. When we set out to do that, we did not know that we were going to need to do the stormwater detention, and so that increased cost for that portion of it we'll be able to meet with that construction fund balance being transferred. And then just the last month or so of the construction fund, we had January interest earnings of about $2,500. Project to date, we hit the $2,025,000, just a little above $2,025,000. And as of the end of January, we had a little under $500,000 left, but we had one final pending bill, and that was the final CKE bill, which I paid on the 5th of February. So that is why we're in a position now where we can transfer that balance, because all the bills have been paid. There is one other kind of pending item, and it was a credit to be received from Brexton for some of the fencing that went along the adjoining property line. So when we do get that, we'll just deposit that right into the permanent improvement fund. So overall, taking into consideration that Brexton fencing adjustment, the final project, about $299,000 left. And the final little asterisk I'll put beside that is we'll have a little bit of February interest too, before that check cleared from CKE and before we transfer that balance. So a final number next month. So that's all I have to share for tonight.
Any questions? Okay.
Just to comment that remarkably great timing there. Just over a year ago is when we dedicated the high school, and to have everything closed out at this point is really great.
I remember you saying that oftentimes those projects would take up to a year to close out, which was a little surprising, having not been through a closeout before. And
there were some that went 3 or 4 years.
So
12 months, I think, is kind of what you shoot for.
Yeah.
Is there a finance committee report?
Go ahead. Yeah, we didn't have a whole lot. We went through the Kids Club recommendations, which are on the board's agenda tonight. Talked a little bit about some ideas for scholarships for the Kids Club and related to having that available for other types of things as well, which there are some of that's already happening. We kind of talked about and reiterated our support for the current board compensation. So we are not coming with any recommendation to change the board compensation.
Yes.
And then also, we kind of discussed and reiterated our support for the current early retirement incentive approach that the district has, so we're not recommending any changes there either. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
I think that was it.
Very thorough.
All right, very good. All right, next we have, under business and finance, the recommendations for approval, C1 through, get over one more page, 18. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there any discussion on anything? Oh, sorry, actually. I'm having, yeah, I was like having a brain freeze right there. Give me a second first. Then we can discuss. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion? There's actually a lot in this. I don't necessarily have anything that I wanted to question myself, but I did want to call attention to the fact that, as Eric mentioned, there's the kids club fees in there. There is the easement with the city of Columbus for this detention, this water detention piece of the track. As always, the donations are much appreciated and impressive.
The Kids Club fee change is up from, it's up 2.5%, 3%. What was my number?
It was not more than 3%.
It was not more than 3%.
So we've got
Right.
recommendations on here for, not only for the summer program fees, but also for next school year. And both of those together, none of them exceeded a 3% increase.
Correct, and with that, just to note, Kids Club is still phenomenally cheaper than other childcare alternatives in the area. The 2.5% to 3% at max income is keeping up with the quality. We have to hire staff people, we have to do materials, we have to do so on and so forth. Mr. Bodie and myself were both very in support of it. Necessary to keep the program at the level that it is while funding it properly. Just as FYI from the Finance Committee on that particular topic, since the numbers are in front of you.
I wanted to bring up the subject of the easement, which is point number 12, and had a number of emails go back and forth today. I had some questions in reading it, and copied our president and vice president on that. So partly it was just a question, because when I was reading through it, it didn't seem that there was the two parts of the contract, that there'd be an agreement where we give something and we get something. And so it's clear that we gave something, which is permanent easement to our property. But reading through it in very dense legal language with lots of verbs and everything else, I couldn't see what it was that we were getting in return. And so trying to clarify that, and I have to say, I mean, it was like during today, and so there's a lot going on, and plus, Valentine's dinner, so I'm not sure I caught thoroughly everything, but I know that you were looking at it as well. And again, maybe I'm still just reading it wrong, but I'm still like not sure about being that what we have in front of us, the deed is really clear about what we're getting in return. And partly I was remembering that when we previously had an issue with a contract, an agreement with Marble Cliff, actually it was, It was a big point legally of that consideration of like, if we were giving something, were we getting something in return? And that was kind of the sticking point of the whole thing, with, some real consequences if we didn't do it right. So that highlighted for me the need to kind of make sure we're doing this one right. So, I think it'd be helpful maybe just to recap. I know the two of you had some conversations, Beth and Andy, with our legal helpers, and to see what they had to say about all that.
Yeah, so I'll just start and then feel free to jump in. So the easement is a permanent easement, as Eric mentioned, and it provides access to the city of Columbus, to our property, for them to do annual inspections, to determine if there was a problem with the stormwater system. They might need to come, take a look at it, maybe recommend repairs. So it provides access to them. And in return, Eric mentioned that, we had some conversations, some emails back and forth with the attorney today from Bricker, who put the easement together, the easement language together for us, and he kind of explained it as that we grant them access to our property, and in exchange, they allow us to tap into the City of Columbus stormwater detention system. And so, when the water is captured on our property, it needs to go somewhere, and so it's us tapping into that system is contingent upon us giving them access, so that if there was a need for, again, inspection, repairs, anything like that, that they would be able to access that. So the attorney felt comfortable with the from that perspective, and I think the final email was kind of late in the day, where he said that he did not believe there was any issue in terms of a fiduciary responsibility. So Eric, you mentioned the another kind of unrelated contract, but the issue of kind of two sides to that contract. What are we giving and what are we getting? And there was even talk in that situation about some possible personal liability. And so he did specifically explain in the final email today that there is no risk of that, which is what we had discussed before. So he did mention that is a standard. That easement is a standard form that the City of Columbus requires from anyone who would want to tap into that storm detention system. Eric brought up the question about, could that language be modified a little bit? And I think in that last email as well, he mentioned that he did not believe the likelihood was great of Columbus allowing us to make any kind of language modifications. So I think it's kind of a standard, application form that they require, and as a part of being able to tap into their system. So yeah.
And I think, to me, that makes sense, that we would grant this in exchange for, the very important, the whole reason we're spending all this money is to have, the drainage and have it go somewhere, when the water is collected and then goes somewhere. And, you need to tap into the wastewater or the stormwater, or whatever the system is. It's just, I don't see that in the document. And so maybe, I guess, am I understanding right that this is part of an application that we would do this and then there would be a decision by the City of Columbus to then grant us? Or how does that work, that we would get that access approved?
Yes, so the language on the agenda is the actual resolution, and then it references the actual, the actual deed of easement is, and I don't know that that is in the agenda packet, Eric, but the actual deed of easement that has been prepared by the attorneys is that in there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There is language in the agenda that mentions that the city requests easement for access, reconstruction, replacement, removal, repair, maintaining. So it's stating that the city is doing these things, right? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Well-
Very first line right here.
And it's on the first line as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the actual language that's in the easement is, again, it's very dense, and I read it and I thought, oh, well, maybe I'm reading it wrong this way, and then I kinda went back, I was like, no, maybe I thought I was reading it right the first way. But it's, basically, we give them the easement, and then it says, for the rights, but without any obligation whatsoever, which is actually in bold, to access, reconstruct, replace, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, again, when I read it, it's, we give them the easements, and then they have the right to do some of these things, but they're not saying they would, and in fact, it says they have no obligation whatsoever.
Is the easement it says they have access, the way it's saying in this is access, reconstruct, replace, remove, but that's saying that they can, but they don't have to.
Yeah, well, and in fact, if you keep reading it, it says like everything that's gonna be done is at our cost, and we need to do it, and it's up to us, and they have the right to inspect us and tell us we did it wrong and have to redo it, and, all that. So, again, I don't know, when I read through it, I don't see that there's any place in here where it's saying, and we will allow you to tap in. So, I didn't know.
So
The process was that we had to grant the easement, and then they would take that, and then they would do something with that and grant us something.
I think maybe what might be most helpful is I literally read this email that he just sent, and, we discussed with the attorney, and it says, I understand that you would like our thoughts on the risk considerations for the board and administration as it relates to the enforceability of the deed of easement and any corresponding fiduciary risk in the event the deed of easement is deemed unenforceable due to lack of consideration for the underlying agreement. In this instance, the agreement is that the city of Columbus is requiring the deed of easement in exchange for granting access its stormwater sewer system. Under this scenario, there is sufficient consideration for the agreement on both sides of the deal. A conveyance is being exchanged for access. As a result, there is no concern over lack of consideration or fiduciary risk. As a note, and this gets at a little more of what you're saying, it would be preferable if the deed explained the nature of the consideration in more detail. But the lack of detail is not fatal in this context in any way. And, as I noted below, the city will likely not agree to add any clarifying language. Obviously, this isn't something I do, week to week, nor do I have a special experience or depth or breadth of skill. I did talk to Joe and Chris McCloskey twice today. Again, going off just the conversations that I had, Beth was a part of one, is, they do this daily. And it was their perception that even if we went back to the city, the likelihood of getting them to change was very small. And additionally, they felt that this was pretty standard operating procedure. I did press them because I read your previous email, Eric, in particular about the fiduciary responsibility that we could be exposed. And I talked to them in the second call in particular about that a great deal. And, you know, their words were, I'm 100% confident that you have zero fiduciary liability with this. Which, I'll be honest, that wasn't on my radar, so you had my, my heartbeat beating a little bit there. So, anyway, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but that was sent, you know, at 6:15 today.
So this deed of easement is one that, it's just, we are the signatory. So they don't actually even sign this, is that right? I didn't see any place for them.
I think that's right, Eric, because I think we're granting, so we're signing to certify that we're granting the easement, yeah.
And so, do you know what is the process then? Like, do we get something back saying you now have the right to do X?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but we can find out for sure.
When does this have to be signed by?
Well, so from a timing standpoint, as you all know, we had a special board meeting because, in particular, not so much for the easement, but for lead time of some of the items they need to start. You know, the plan is, and it's pretty tight schedule, to start March 1st. There is some, you know, I'm not, there, that is the timeline.
So it's essentially, we vote this one up or down. If we vote it down, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I don't think I'm wrong, we can't move forward with the track project, correct?
Well, that is correct, because the reason we couldn't do it last year was because of the water retention system that was required. The city of Columbus would not approve our plans. And we knew going in that there was a 50-50 chance that they wouldn't,
Right.
or would, approve the plans. They didn't, and so a requirement of the water retention system with the city, due to our need to hook up to their sewer system, is an easement.
And if we vote this up, we should not have issues from the city, correct?
Correct.
If it's voted down, the track project is on a halt.
That would be correct.
I'm not, without emotions,
Yeah.
like that's
I
what I
mean,
was trying.
maybe it would be possible without knowing that they could start pieces of it without having this completely ironed out, but that's like, I think that's probably unknown. I'm
Well,
just
I-
gonna
Like, if
say-
we can
Yeah,
boil it
I mean,
down to.
my sense is, so this is my sense is that the construction company would need to go back, or we, you know, architects, owners rep, go back to the Columbus City Zoning Commission to get approved new language.
Okay.
You know, what I can only say is from past experience, because we dealt with this last year, because we had plans to do it. And if you recall, I mean, I'm going off memory here, but I think it was a 4-month process.
And I just say, I just want to say, I get where Eric's coming from, but I just want to be out there to say that I don't have a problem with this. I personally don't feel like this is actually an issue. It's one of those things, it doesn't surprise me, like, they want the right to access it if they have to. They also don't want to be forced to access it. Do you know what I mean? And it just seems like the type of thing that would be standard for this type of construction project. It doesn't invoke any fears in me. So I personally am okay with moving forward, but just say my piece there. Is there any other discussion on this or other items?
I mean, just to say, I appreciate that. I guess I'm a little torn, personally. You know, I think probably, that what would happen is, you know, we would sign and they would move ahead and we would get access, just like, you know, is kind of the intention here. And, you know, that makes sense to me overall, I guess. It does concern me to take this, you know, pretty significant, you know, fiscal matter of signing away, you know, rights to our property, without really understanding, you know, and having it clear what you know, what we get in return. And I think particularly, it's just really hard for me to square this with the other legal opinion. It makes me really question the value. I mean, it seems like, and I think compounding the fact is that we had one set of lawyers before, and this is a different set of lawyers. So, I mean, it's hard for me to square the two pieces of advice that we've gotten.
I don't know that I see those as comparable to one another. One was about giving money, you know, to another municipality, like our tax revenue. This has to deal with construction, and we are being granted access to their wastewater.
We think.
Yeah. The other thing too, though, to both of your points, the situation we had before, the contract was already signed before we were included. This is now done in real time, where we have an opportunity to say, you give me this, I give you that. So it's, to Emily's point, it's not outsider perspective, it's not apples to apples. It looks to be the same situation because it's municipality to municipality. But I think with the one that we had previously, that was a done deal before we were included in it. Now this is a in front of us deal where we could say, you give me X, I give you Y. And that's where I think you're having the fuzziness because you don't see Y. You see X that we are giving, but Y isn't as clear. And I was listening because legalese, I love it, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know. And when you're like, I can't see where we are getting X, and I'm like, I'm kind of with you on that. Like, I trust our legal opinion. I trust the thing, bring it forward. I would like the track project to be done. I do see exactly where you're coming from, where Y isn't the clearest. I also value very much our president's opinion with, like, if they're not worried about it, okay. I take that very much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And in
So
here,
that's where I'm
it's
at.
talking about how we have to take care when we're doing X, Y, and Z. So in stating those, in stating that, I feel like that is implicit. Since you're going to be doing all this, this is the expectation of you, which is sort of, it speaks to the heart of what the cooperation is, which is, and I don't think this is what you're saying, but it's not as though, in my opinion, Columbus is like trying to grab property rights by like being, ooh, covert, we're sneaky. They don't realize that we're grabbing property rights.
Putting
I don't
snakes in
think
their
that's, that seems highly unlikely. If this is if according to Bricker Graydon, this is their routine language and form that they use in this scenario. I feel like in a cost benefit analysis, that it is a greater cost to not approving this today.
I get that. I very much get that, and I'm still with Mr. Bodie on, I would like it a little bit more explicit than implicit. I also understand they're not gonna change their language, so it's kinda, I'm sitting between mom and dad. I'm like, I understand you both. I get both of where you were coming from. I'm like, do the other kids wanna weigh in, or is it mom and dad here?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gousset.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other conversation on anything else under those numbers previously stated? Many thanks to the Bobcat Boosters. There's some impressive donations by them here to the Model UN, particularly and for treadmills. Okay. Beth, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye.
All right, moving on to personnel, 1 through 13. I should just write those ahead of time.
You're okay.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it. As previously stated, there's a couple retirements on there that we will recognize more formally in the future. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Beth, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye. Is there a policy committee report?
We didn't meet. I know we have some final reading today and vote. I have the policy if anybody has any questions.
Is there a motion to approve the policies?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Beth, please call the roll.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye.
Is there a teaching and learning committee report?
There is not, we have not met since the last meeting.
Okay. All right, now the final recommendations under co-curricular and extracurricular activities is 1 through 4. Is there a motion for approval for those?
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Okay, Beth, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassmuth?
Aye.
Okay, is there any other items for discussion that anyone would like to bring up? Okay, no need for executive session, so I think we are done. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Ooh, I got that one. So moved.
Second.
Can you please call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassmuth?
All right. Aye.